On September 29, 1996, at approximately 2 a.m., 15-year-old Melanie Ethier left a friend's residence in the town of New Liskeard, Ontario, to walk home less than a kilometer away and has not been seen or heard from since. Ethier was last seen crossing the south side of the Armstrong Street Bridge on the morning of September the 28th, 1996. Ethier visited the home of her mother's very close friend, Sylvie Churtard. Only Ethier, Churtard, and Churtard's 6-year-old daughter, Stephanie, were present at the house, as Churtard's partner, Dennis Livio, and her son, Jason, were out of town. During this visit, Melanie broke a nail, which caused her to become upset. Churtard later speculated Ethier's disappointment over her broken nail was compounded by the family's financial difficulties, as their car was broken down and phone service to their house had been cut off the previous day due to unpaid bills. Ethier left the home and traveled downtown, by chance running into her best friend at a bus stop outside the New Liskeard Public Library. Her friend, who had been doing homework in the library, decided to abandon her schoolwork early and join Ethier. The two girls visited several locations in New Liskeard, including a pizza, where they had lunch. Over pizza, Melanie floated the idea of becoming a teacher and volunteering in Botswana, the country her father was from. Ethier purchased candles, frosting, candy hearts, and a new cake pan to make a cake for her grandmother's birthday, which was going to be celebrated the next day before her grandparents went out of town. The pair also visited a house in nearby Diamond to collect money from someone Melanie had babysat for. At some point, the girls met up with Ethier's boyfriend, Neil Fortier, who had been dating her for 3 weeks, and their friends Dave Bromley, Jay Dinham, and Ryan Chatwin. Fortier described Ethier as being in a good mood that day and night. The group stopped at the video rental store at around 9 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time and rented the movie Sudden Death. At approximately 10 p.m. that evening, the group arrived at Ethier's home to watch a movie. Ethier's mom was spending time with Melanie's grandmother in the living room and suggested that her bedroom was too disorderly for hosting guests. Although given the choice to watch the film in her bedroom, Ethier decided to tell the teens they would have to watch the movie elsewhere, and they left the residence. The group attempted to watch the movie at the home of Bromley's then-girlfriend, Samba Benshabi, who was unable to host them as her family was preparing for a move, but joined them briefly to walk to another friend's house. Benshabi left the group when they reached the Armstrong Street Bridge, at which point she returned home. Ethier's female friend complained that the air had turned too cold around this time. Shortly after 10 p.m., the group relocated to a house on Pine Avenue where Ryan Chatwin lived. Chatwin's parents were present in the house but remained in their bedroom. Bromley returned home at this time. The house was roughly 10 or 12-minute walk from Ethier's home, or about 6 blocks, according to those present. The teens watched the movie quietly in the basement while Chatwin's parents were asleep upstairs, and they consumed no drugs or alcohol that evening. Before the movie finished, Danam left the house at around 12:30 to 1 o'clock a.m. and returned home. Ether's friend and her family also left early in order to catch a ride to Halle also departing at around the same time. While leaving the house, she encountered a suspicious vehicle which approached her slowly and crossed through the intersection as if assessing her. The girl was so unnerved by the incident that she ran from the scene to the next intersection by the Armstrong Street Bridge, which was better lit. She followed the same route that Melanie is thought to have taken to Ethier's home, where Melanie's grandparents were waiting to take her home. She arrived at Melanie's home approximately just before 1 a.m., catching the last few minutes of Saturday Night Live before being driven home because Melanie's grandparents lived close by. The vehicle she encountered had been described as a white or light-colored Chevrolet Monte Carlo or similar two-door model with signs of being in poor condition, including a gray patch on the right side door, which was likely hiding a hole or some other damage. The witness believes the occupants were two teenage boys or young men, but she can't remember ever seeing the car again. At the time of her departure, only 3 people remained in the house: Melanie, Ethier, which was her boyfriend, and Ryan Chatwin. The last confirmed sighting of Ether was at around 1:30 to 2 p.m. on the 29th of September 1996 when she left her friend's house and began making the 1 kilometer, 3,300 feet walk to her home alone on foot. It was uncommon for Ether to walk home by herself, but without phone service, she couldn't call her home for a ride, and she wasn't wanting to leave when her friend did. One of the boys escorted her to the door and watched her walk west down Pine Avenue East. Ether's route would have taken her through 3 intersections, over the Armstrong Street Bridge, past a gas station and apartment building, up a back alley, or along a main road, and finally to the top of Church Street where Ether's residence was located. According to the family and friends, Melanie typically preferred to use the back alley when making this journey. The bridge was the only portion on Ether's route that was brightly lit, and the street would have been reasonably busy at that late hour when she was seen crossing it. After the bridge, the last stretch of her walk home involved a poorly lit back road where the video rental store was that she had earlier visited. The weather that evening was clear, and as it had only been 2 days since the previous full moon, it is believed that there would have been some natural light along Ether's route. Celine, her mom, became aware of her daughter's absence the next morning when Melanie's alarm clock roused her at approximately 6 o'clock, and she discovered her daughter was not in her bedroom. As it was not uncharacteristic of Melanie to spend the night at a friend's house, Celine went back to bed and did not wake up again until between 8 and 9 a.m. Melanie's grandparents arrived at the house at approximately 10 a.m. to celebrate her grandmother's birthday, at which point Melanie was supposed to have finished preparing the cake with the materials that she had bought the day before. Celine did not immediately suspect anything was amiss due to Melanie's habit of responsible behavior, but she was alarmed when it became clear that Melanie hadn't made it home the night before. Celine and her father drove to Tim Hortons to purchase a cake and call around in hopes of reaching Melanie, where she learned her daughter had left the Chatwin residence heading home. Melanie did not appear at the daycare job as scheduled, prompting her mother to phone the New Liskeard Police Service at around 1 p.m. and report Melanie missing. The search for Melanie began on the afternoon of Sunday, the 29th of September 1996 at around 2:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. New Liskeard Police dispatched officers to the Ether residence and began a search of the area around the Armstrong Street Bridge and along the banks of the Wabi River within hours of her being reported missing. Local police requested assistance from the OPP, which is the Ontario Provincial Police, on Monday, the 30th of September. A helicopter from Sudbury, a police dog team from North Bay, and a search and rescue dog from the Office of the Fire Marshal of Ontario were dispatched to expand the search around Pine Avenue, as were an OPP emergency search and rescue team and an Ontario Hydro helicopter the following day, which would be the October 1st, and it was a Tuesday. A psychic with a history of contributing to police investigations also joined the search. More than a dozen police officers and volunteer firefighters canvassed the area where Ether had been last sighted, and police focused across Ontario and were alerted to the disappearance. Although authorities conducted a door-to-door canvass, no homes in the area were searched. Police stated that they checked all surveillance video taken along Ether's route the night she vanished, as well as the visitor's log in the Wheel Inn Motel near Pine Avenue. Two New Liskeard police officers were assigned to the lead investigation and were joined by 2 detectives from the OPP Major Crimes Unit in Orillia during the first week of October. All the friends who were with Ether that night were questioned by the police. The weekend of October the 5th and the 6th, 1 week after Melanie disappeared, the 424 Transport and Rescue Squadron performed training exercises in the area and also participated in the search. On Tuesday, the 8th of October, an underwater search and rescue team began a 3-day search of the Wabi River between the Armstrong Street Bridge and Lake Temiskaming. So clay deposits in the river reduced their visibility and forced them to search by touch alone. At some point, a Lockheed C-130 helicopter with the Hercules Military Transport Association was also used to search the area. By mid-October, Ether's case was listed with Crime Stoppers, and the public was implored to phone in tips which could help the investigators locate her. Search teams were unable to find any signs indicating where Ether had disappeared from or where she was taken. The search was complicated by the Trans-Canada Highway, which passes by the community and makes the possibility of a random assault by someone from outside of the community more likely. Officially, no evidence has been recovered in the case, though according to Ether family, a single item may have been recovered by police on the first day of the search and never made public. OPP statements to the media made it clear detectives believe she had no reason to leave the community. Police never recovered any security footage from the Night Owl convenience store located 1 block away from the Pine Avenue residence. Shortly after Ether's disappearance, missing persons posters and billboards with her picture were put up in the New Liskeard and surrounding communities. Some of these remain in place and others have been replaced. One particularly well-known billboard outside Latchford pairs a photo of Ether with the question, "You know what happened to me, so why don't you help?" Ether's then-boyfriend, Neil Fortier, would later state that his biggest regret in life was not walking her home that night. He has also stated that even decades later, some locals continue to accuse him of being responsible for the disappearance, either through negligence or by murdering her. Ryan Chatwin, whose family lived in the Pine Avenue residence where Ether spent her last night, has also stated that he feels extraordinary guilt for not having the foresight to walk her home, and his family has also expressed deep guilt. In a 2021 interview, Jay Denham said he still thinks about Melanie multiple times per week, although he does not believe the others were present that night and were involved in what happened to Ether. Dave Bromley has stated he remains critical of their decision not to walk her home. Celine and volunteers from the community, including Jay Denham, one of the boys present on the night of the disappearance, distributed posters in the New Liskeard and communities as far as Timmins, Ottawa, and Montreal. Ether also wrote a letter to the publisher in a November issue of the Temiskaming Speaker newspaper and sent information about Melanie to media companies in Toronto in hopes of keeping attention on the case. Child Find, a national charity dedicated to finding missing children and supporting their communities, had begun circulating information about Melanie and her disappearance across Canada by December of '96. The New Liskeard community helped search for Melanie and support the Ether family. A special prayer service was held at the New Liskeard Church of St. John the Evangelist on October the 2nd, 1996, 3 days after Melanie disappeared, and a second was held shortly afterwards at Paros St. Croix. Parents whose children were enrolled in the Garderie Richelieu, the daycare where both Melanie and Celine Ether worked, began organizing a trust fund for the Ether family after the disappearance. On the 18th of November 1996, a vigil of about a dozen people, led by Celine Ether, decorated a tree near the intersection of Armstrong Street and Whitewood Avenue in downtown New Liskeard, just south of the bridge where Melanie was last sighted. Another vigil was held on the 9th of December and was attended by roughly 60 people. The tree located behind the Holy Cross Parish Church was adorned with yellow ribbons and a photo of Melanie in order to keep the public aware of her case. And throughout the holiday season, other trees were similarly decorated with gold ribbons. Two officers assigned to work the case full-time in 1997 to 1998, the new Liskeard Police Sergeant Dwight Thibb and OPP Detective Constable Bill DeBarrel, began re-interviewing witnesses in early 1997 in order to exhaust all possible leads in the case. OPP Inspector Pete Burns had taken over the case by September 1997, and Thibb returned to regular police duties on the 25th of February 1998. The task force dedicated to searching for Melanie was formally disbanded in 1998, but Thibb and Deverell would continue to work on the case with new leads that appeared. Deverell later said that he remained on the case up until the day of his retirement, which was December 31st, 2002. Thibb continued working on the case until he was attached to the OPP in 2007. Over the course of their investigation, the two officers integrated hundreds of suspects and persons of interest. The OPP conducted another search of Melanie on the 26th of April 1999, focusing on the Dawson Point area to the east of the new Liskeard, which had previously not been investigated. In summer of 2000, police seized materials from the landfill in McGarry as part of the investigation. Celine Ethier created a Facebook page entitled Let's Work Together to Find Melanie Ethier on the 11th of August 2009 to raise awareness for her daughter's case. Ethier has concentrated her search on Melanie online, telling reporters in 2015 that I feel that Facebook, because it is so known to everybody, is going to give Melanie more exposure, and I am going to get the tip that I need to be able to find her. In 2010, an eyewitness account of Ethier crossing the Armstrong Street Bridge was made public, and more details of the sighting were released in 2021. According to the witness, she and her husband were driving across the bridge when they both spotted a teenage black girl walking south on the eastern sidewalk. The night was clear and they saw no vehicles or other pedestrians on the bridge. At the time of this sighting, the girl was closer to the north end of the bridge. The witness commented that the girl seemed too young to be alone at night, but was walking unbothered at a normal pace, while her husband remarked that he was not aware there were any black girls in the New Liskeard area. Although the witnesses believed the girl's hair had been in dreadlocks, it is possible she misidentified the braided extensions that Ethier wore. They did not report their account to the police until 1997 or 1998 when they saw Ethier's photo. The tip was not properly logged into the police records and would not be investigated until the 2000s when the witness approached Celine directly, at which point police were urged to revisit the sighting. Another witness, who had lived on Rebecca Street just off Pine Avenue and near docks, took her story to the police in 2019. In a 2021 interview, this witness, known to the public only as Denise, disclosed that around 1:45 on September 29, 1996, she was doing schoolwork in her room when she heard a girl screaming outside. Although she initially ignored the outburst, she heard more screaming about 45 seconds later and became frightened. After checking that her front door was locked, the witness snuck to her bay window and saw 3 silhouettes of people running down the street toward Pine Avenue, but no vehicles or headlights. Her husband was at home at the time, did not witness the events as he was asleep. Approximately 300 masked marchers attended a Walk for Awareness, Bring Melanie Ethier Home event on the 7th of November 2020, raising awareness for the case and advocating for better child welfare. In June 2021, 2 friends of a man named Dennis LaVille came forward to say he had driven to their house while he under the influence in 2013 or 2014 and confessed to killing Ether, though he refused to say what he did with her body and later threatened them that if they shared the information he just told them, he would kill them too. However, this information cannot be looked into further as LaVelle has since passed away. Of particular interest to this case is the suspicious vehicle encountered by the two girls who were with Ether on the day she disappeared. Samia Bunchabi, who had briefly walked with the group on the afternoon of the 28th of September 1996, left them and returned home after sunset, either at around 7 p.m. or thereabouts. While she was walking back to her house with her large dog, a white delivery van pulled over to ask her for directions to a street in New Liskeard. Though later Bunchabi could not remember which street they asked about, the van was large and rusted, with a sliding door and no windows. The location where they pulled over was only about 100 meters from the Ether residence. The driver and his passenger were reported as being in their early 30s or early 40s, both unkept, and at least one of them was wearing just an undershirt. She found the conversation uncomfortable, and when her dog began to bark aggressively at the vehicle, Bunchabi declined to give them any information and the men drove off. The van was also spotted that night by a video store employee. The employee, who was the sister of one of the male friends Ether was with, had seen Melanie earlier that day and had even paid for the movie the group rented. One man, either the driver or the passenger, entered the rental store at around 10:30 that evening and loitered around, ignoring the clerk's offer to help him find what he was looking for, and left without ever saying a word. He was wearing blue work pants which looked unwashed and discolored, a grungy white t-shirt and which was extensively yellowed, and work boots. He was described as being of an average build with dirty blonde hair and in his early 40s, standing roughly 5 feet 8 inches tall or 5 feet 9 inches tall. She described the van as being a beat-up white utility van with no signage and was unable to inconspicuously take down the license plate number because it was parked in a dark spot. After the man left, the clerk, who would normally walk home alone, felt threatened by the stranger's odd behavior and called her father to pick her up when the store closed at 11 o'clock p.m. Police did not question the clerk until 2020. After another vehicle was reported in the area on that night, either disappeared. Melanie Ether disappeared was a light-colored white, light blue, or light gray car with a vinyl roof, possibly an older Cadillac Eldorado, Chevrolet Monte Carlo, Ford Elite, Ford LTD, Ford Tempo, Ford Thunderbird, Mercury Topaz, an Oldsmobile 88, or an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. The car was spotted driving around New Liskeard after dark with its headlights turned off, behavior considered suspicious by the witnesses. The vehicle was seen by witnesses on the Armstrong Street Bridge at around 2 a.m. It is unknown if this vehicle, the white van, or the slowly moving car encountered by Ether's friend on Pine Avenue are connected to each other or the disappearance. Melanie Nadia Ether, also goes by Mel, was born on December the 25th, 1980, and she was wearing a green Nike windbreaker, a white t-shirt with a blue heart Pepe logo, blue jeans, a black belt with a silver buckle, black boots with a short heel, a necklace, and a watch. Melanie stood approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed approximately 120 pounds, and had brown eyes and long braided hair extensions, which she was very fond of on her black hair. She was known for being bilingual and a ballerina, a roller skater, a Highland dancer. Loved ones described Melanie as being salt of the earth and having a lovely personality. It said she could find humor in any situation, and her family and friends do not feel as though she would have wandered off. She had not been diagnosed with any mental illness and was not taking any medications. Friends who knew her at the time do not believe she was suffering from any undiagnosed condition. Melanie was an honors student at École Secondaire Catholique Sainte Marie in New Lisgard. Ether has been described as being the daughter of Celine Ether, whose family had moved to New Lisgard area when she was 6 years old, and acted as a second mother to her sister Jessie, who was younger. She was only 5 years old at the time, and she was one of the only 3 black girls in the community. Ether's father, with whom she had no relationship, was from Botswana and met her mother while attending a mining school in neighboring Halle-Berry, but was relocated to another school during the pregnancy and returned to Africa once his schooling was complete. At the time of her disappearance, the combined population of New Lisgard and its neighboring communities was roughly 11,000. Melanie was employed at a local daycare, the Gardier Richelieu, and learning self-defense from a family friend. She intended to become a teacher after graduating from high school. The Gardier Richelieu she worked at was attached to her high school, and Melanie would open the facility early in the morning, go to school, return after school to help the young children off the bus, and remain until it was closed in the evening. Ether's mother also worked at the daycare while also taking college courses in Sudbury. This case is unique as Melanie seemed to vanish without a trace. The OPP believes someone out there has the information that is required to solve this case and look to the public for further information. The OPP has disclosed very little information in the hopes of preserving the integrity of this investigation. The OPP prides itself on investigative and excellence and has a long-standing tradition of conducting thorough and detailed investigations. This is certainly the case with the disappearance of Melanie Ether. The investigation is currently being handled by the Temisking branch of the OPP in collaboration with the OPP Crime Unit and is led by Senior Officer Detective Inspector Rob Matthews and Lead Detective Inspector Corey Betts. Detective Sergeant Lisa Lexton, who was lead investigator on the case prior to 2021, is now employed by the police as an investigations coordinator. The province of Ontario currently offers a $50,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest or conviction for those responsible for Ether's disappearance. The investigation has remained active and ongoing for all these years and will remain open until the OPP determine the whereabouts of Melanie or can positively determine what has happened to her. Celine told reporters in 2017 that she no longer believed her daughter was still alive, and in a 2021 interview said she felt this way since the 3rd day of the search. Investigators also believe Melanie Ether is deceased. Anyone with information regarding missing person Melanie Ether should immediately contact the Temisking Detachment at 1-888-310-1122, or if you wish to remain anonymous, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477, and you may be eligible to receive a cash award of up to $25,000.